the word of exercise and plant-based, the combination of those two has so much potential. It's in to be able to have the chance as a physician to see athletes or encourage them to demonstrate the importance of optimal health with this combination. Not that I want to forget about stress and sleep and all these and, consumption of alcohol and everything. But I see this amazing combination. We're at a tipping point now where people are starting to realize the importance of proper nutrition with the plant-based and the exercise. It's just that this inflammation control with a better exercise combined allows you to reach a peak that is so much better.
Welcome to the Yogi Triathlete Podcast. We are your hosts, Jess and BJ, and we're on a mission to create a better world. The kind of world that changes as we change, and one that becomes better as we all heal and grow and expand our mindset to realize that it all begins within us. The changes we all desire must start from within, and we begin that journey by becoming more aware of how we are living and feeling our life. Today, we're honored to welcome Plant-Based Telehealth team member Dr. Elisabeth Fontaine to the show. Dr. Fontaine is double board certified in GYN and Lifestyle Medicine and a fellow of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. Before specializing in women's health, in which she has an extensive background, she focused on obesity management and exercise physiology. And now Dr. Fontaine finds herself seeing patients through plant-based telehealth, but also coaching fellow physicians on lifestyle changes that equate to increased well-being in their life and profession. We have a vast scope of knowledge that we all get to learn from today, and we're looking forward to seeing where this conversation goes. Dr. Fontaine, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. It's always impressive to listen to what people have, our biography. I mean, you succeed to kind of put the good thing all together. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate your time. We've had such a great experience talking with all the doctors and just learning about everyone's unique journey. I believe that we're here to, share our gifts, and we figure out what those gifts are, whether we recognize them as gifts or not. We find those and unearth those just through the story of our life. And you have quite an experience in the medical field under your belt. I love that you're working, doing some coaching with physicians. But in my research, and I don't think BJ found this either, but in our research leading up into this podcast, we don't know your plant-based story, which is what I would love for you to share with us today. And whatever all else comes with that story, we'd love to hear it.
Well, I think that, first of all, I like to tell your people listening that my accent comes from Quebec. I'm from Quebec City, and I've been in the United States now for 28 years, practicing. And my story, it's interesting. There's a blend between exercise and the, nutrition. So, and I thought maybe that would be interesting to say that I was not necessarily an exerciser until 1976. I'm not young. In 1976, we had the Olympic in Montreal. And unfortunately, my family was not into sports. So I was watching it on TV. And I saw the people running, and I said, that's it. I'm gonna start that. I'm gonna start running. And since then, I've always kept, I've never been a super athlete. I had some good time in my marathon and half marathon, but I've always kept it. So I went and studied, like you said earlier, in exercise physiology, obesity. And at that time, I was already interested by nutrition. I didn't know plant-based, but I was already, exploring the vegetarian option. And actually what happened is that practicing as an OBGYN, I saw my patient growing older with me and also getting unhealthy. And, I would send them back to their primary care physician, and nothing to say about the primary care. They're so overwhelmed that they would come back on medication. And I said, well, there's another way to do this. So in my practice, which was against what the hospital was thinking, I decided to do a clinic that would be only lifestyle. So I would do the Friday morning, and I select my patient, and I said, you know what? You do have this chronic disease. If you'd like to explore that, I'm going to start that on a Friday morning. And I start seeing people. Even at that time, the hospital didn't want to code. They didn't want to use the CPT coding. They thought it was this was not acceptable. But we started doing that, and I searching. I discovered the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. That was at the very, very beginning of the American College. It was probably 10, 12 years ago. So I've been with the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. This is where I discovered the plant-based. It's the first time I went and met the research of Dean Ornish, Acetine, and all these names that was amazing to see the impact of the plant-based. So I came home, actually a little bit off of the office of what I'm going to say. I came home, and it was around, what is it? Just November. What is it? I have a blank into your, it wasn't Christmas. What's before Christmas? There you go. Thank you. I have to think about these terms in English. And I said to people, we're going to give it a try here. If you show people results on literature, it doesn't mean anything until you demonstrate the impact locally. So I took 15 people, and including my family. I should bring my husband here. He said, are you out of your mind? You want us to stop eating meat? We've always done this way. And I said, well, the research is pretty clear. So I have two girls, and at the time they were, 14. They were in high school, 14, 16, and they both agreed to do that for the 2 weeks. So we did 21 days. And I took all these people that had elevated blood pressure, high cholesterol. For 2 weeks, they wanted to kill me during Thanksgiving. What an idea of a physician. But the results were just amazing. Like we all know, you can have substantial change in all these results. Your cholesterol can drop significantly. Your weight obviously drops significantly. A lot of people improve their early diabetes. So all that reverse made such a significant impact. And that was, one of the elements that allowed me slowly, progressively to make the change in my hospital. They're still not ready for that. But, it was a beginning. And, you hear so much about it now compared to when I was talking about that 10 years ago, or even me when I was talking about exercise 40 years ago. I ran my marathon 40 years ago. So I'm a little bit of an early boomer on that. It was the Montreal Marathon in Ottawa that I ran. So.
You are blazing a trail, and I think that takes a lot of confidence and belief that what you're doing is the right thing, even though there's probably resistance from the hospital that, what are you doing? But what resistance did you feel from any of the patients that you brought in during this time of Thanksgiving, which is when we want to eat everything and everything again? Was there any resistance from them as to?
You know what? It's pretty amazing, but when you are a physician that they trust, they're ready to do it. So I always tell the physician, I said, once you understand how important it is, the people will do it. So those 15 people, I didn't necessarily select them. They were not my patient, because I see women. I have men into the study that came with their wife and accepted the fact that, Dr. Fontaine, my wife, trusts. And actually, if the wife trusts, or the woman in the family trusts the physician, usually the family goes. So it's very important. The woman is an important factor to make health choice in the family. So they accepted it. There's not much else. You're going to say, well, she thinks she's good. It's important. They have to have trust in you, and they were.
Did your husband stay with it? Did your family stay with it long term?
Yes, yes. One of my daughter, actually, I brought her to the American College of Lifestyle. I think it was the year that I was doing the board. This was the very first board in 2017, and my youngest came. She was not totally, but once she saw all the information, she came to all the session. She said, "This is it. I'm going to be plant-based." My husband is probably 98%. I won't say that it doesn't happen. He's not going to eat something, but he's pretty good. And, you know, the interesting thing is he's going to go out there and talk about it and give the message. And I'm like, here you go. You know, he's very convinced that it had some good impact. I mean, we were pretty healthy. He's a biker, and, you know, myself too. So not that it had any significant difference in, you know, maybe the way we look, like losing weight or things like that. But, you know, when you think that we're both over 60 without medication for chronic disease, so it's always a good sign. So the family stick with it.
So you as a woman, and even as a runner back then, did you notice any changes or any, you know, results in blood work or anything like that as you made your switch to fully plant-based?
Well, you know, that's a difficult situation for me to say that I see any difference, because I went from relatively healthy by doing exercise every day to suddenly being optimally healthy. So I'm giving myself the best chance to not hopefully developing any of the chronic disease, because it's not because you're a runner, you exercise, that you prevent all this. This may look good, you know, RJ, I'm doing good, I'm a triathlete, but if you eat anything, first of all, it plays on the results. You usually will have much better results if you eat much better. But it has an impact. We see there's a lot of studies that are happening in Quebec with sudden death of very high level athlete, long distance runner. And so the question is, are we blaming the fact that they're really doing too much exercise and would have an impact on their vessel? They did not mention if these people were plant-based, and I'm concerned that the inflammation related with the fact that these people are probably not plant-based is playing a pretty big role into this.
I agree with you. You know, as the sport of triathlon has grown, and I want to say it was maybe like 10 years ago we started, and you know, that's just the number that's coming into my head. I know it probably happened before, but seeing people have heart attacks on the swim. And as I was learning, this was about the time that I was learning about plant-based and becoming plant-based and realizing the health benefits and just the strain on the heart of eating an inflammatory diet, but also all the extra things that come along with an animal-based diet. I started to think, is it more tied into what their everyday diet is as opposed to the difficulty of the swim? So I would say the leading organization here, the business would be Ironman, right? The Ironman branded events. And so they started a whole Swim Smart program and more safety. And so that there's trying to control the levels of anxiety that people were facing. But I was thinking, my gosh, because it can be pretty anxious getting into the water with 2,000 people. And then if you don't have a heart that's getting all of the blood that it needs, like just, to me, it seemed like a recipe. But I love that they're doing studies on this. And I thought about that years ago. I'm like, I think that there's another piece here that we're not talking about, and that is the everyday diet, because you cannot exercise yourself out of heart disease. Correct.
I'd be interested. It'd be an amazing study, you know, to be able to evaluate, but it's a long-term study, and that's tough. How do you spend, you know, your life to evaluate these individuals and see how they're doing? So, but I do believe that there's an impact, definitely, of the diet.
So You originally went into exercise physiology, kinesiology, working with obesity management. Now, is that spurred from your love of running, which came from the inspiration of watching the Olympics?
Yeah, actually, I suppose I had a little bit of talent in running. I'm more of a runner than I do a lot of sport, and I'll tell you what I do now for activity. But my research is interesting. My research that I did for my paper. So I train 20 sets of identical and non-identical twins for 20 weeks. So I was looking at the time, not only for the obesity, but the exercise response and how they were. I don't know if you even imagine to try to differentiate those twins, but I was able to, at the end, I was good enough. So I had them every single day. This was on a stationary bike, but every day, 5 days a week, I trained them for 20 weeks for my research project to see if there was a significant difference between the fact that you're, an identical twins versus non-identical. And the research we did after was more related to overfeeding, which may sound to be a little crazy, but that was some of the studies that we were doing. So it was fascinating and such a fun time. Many, many years ago, but fun time.
What were you finding? What were some of the results that you found? This is so interesting.
Yeah, well, it is. And you think, genetic, it was more genetic at the time because my advisor was very strong in genetics. So he really wanted us to, just to be able to find those twins was something. You don't find, Quebec City doesn't have as much population as you can find in New York. So we were able to find them and to make sure that they were identical. Just looking at them, it's enough to say that they're identical. But anyway, yes, there is definitely a correlation between the twins. So twins will respond pretty much the same way as opposed to, I'm trying to make it a little bit more simple. There might be other element, but compared to the non-identical twins, that would be different. The one set of twins was totally amazing. They were identical. And they were not exercises per se. They had a bike at the time, which might still be, very popular, bike with no speed. And that was their way of transportation. They had a VO2 max in the order, without training, in the order of 75, 80. Now, I don't know if people have any idea, of your population. Well, that's a high level of VO2 max. It's the level of an athlete of, world triathlon level, marathon level. And these guys were just biking, going from one place to another, just a natural athlete, that obviously had probably something like 1% body fat when I was talking with them because we were measuring those things. It was fascinating. And I tell you, the word of exercise and plant-based, the combination of those two has so much potential. It's and to be able to have the chance as a physician to see athletes or encourage them to demonstrate the importance of optimal health with this combination. Not that I want to forget about stress and sleep and all these and, consumption of alcohol and everything. But I see this amazing combination. We're at a tipping point now where people are starting to realize the importance of proper nutrition with the plant-based and the exercise. It's just that this inflammation control with a better exercise combined allows you to reach a peak that is so much better. So I find, what you're doing fascinating, and hopefully we'll have the chance to work together. I love that.
Yeah, I feel like that's a magical combination too, but I also think in terms of longevity and being able to do this for a really, really long time. Like this is something I want to do for a long time. I don't foresee myself stopping. And in order to do that, I need to pay attention to the food that I'm putting in my body, and not just if it's plant-based or not, but what type of plant-based food are we putting in? The chips and the processed vegan or plant-based foods. There's plenty of options for those, but when we really hone in our practice of bringing mindfulness and a less stressful life into the choices that we make when we're actually consuming food. And I know Jess is really good at this, taking time to actually eat in a mindful way, in a slow way, not with Netflix in front of you, not with, trying to do work and trying to multitask, but actually like pay attention to it. You find that you're able to do more, and you're able to do it consistently more often, which is what we all want to do, because we want to move often. Like we get a taste for it, and then and we really like it, and then we feel like we can go even more and more.
Yes.
And when we do that, we got to be very careful. If we go too extreme, then we take a few days to recover. But what we like to do here as a little bit of insight is we like to be consistent every day, and then bump up just a little bit, and then come back and then bump up a little bit, so that we can get what everybody wants is to move often. I think we take it for granted, and the only way we realize it is when we are injured or we are fatigued and we wish that we were doing the exercise, but we actually can't.
You can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is an interesting and important point that you're touching, this realization that you've reached that point that is above and beyond, and then you have this question of exhaustion. So unfortunately, you're right. We're talking about plant-based, but basically, if we wanted to be a little bit more explicit, it's a whole plant food-based diet, and therefore not including the processed plant-based. And I have to admit that for the people that I see, people that we hear in the webinar, or people that come to see us, there's a lot of extreme and not necessarily understanding well what it is, as much as people are totally confused with even the standard American diet, they're confused to what it is to be eating good. And I see a lot of extreme where they eliminate everything. And so we really have to be able to bring them back and take the thing, the component of nutrition as a whole, to understand it is not one specific little element, but a whole that we need to be very careful with, lots of color and lots of variety. That's the most important thing. So there's a lot of teaching. And by the way, talking about that, I know that you probably are aware that physicians are far from being very well good trained in nutrition. So there's a lot of work. So that seems to be interesting for a lot of your listener that physician and plant-based nutrition. So we do lifestyle, not only plant-based, but, certainly a lot of plant-based, and wondering, that's all they do, for a physician. But that's what will reverse most of the chronic disease that is responsible of, how much it costs in our healthcare system. So 80% of our money invested in healthcare system is related to chronic disease. And these chronic diseases are almost 90% related to our lifestyle. So what we eat, but also what we don't do. So the importance of moving, but the importance of eating the right thing, which is, between you and I, the whole plant food-based diet. So there's lots of teaching to do that there, and being able to combine the two is even more, I don't know to what extent. It's interesting to be part of this discussion here. I guess I'm not aware to see that many athletes that are plant-based. So listening to your podcast, I see a lot, and it's really amazing. And I like to see that. And I'm hoping that there'll be more and more, because the majority of them, it transformed their performance. They can't imagine that this is possible. And obviously, I think I'm not a very good example because I'm so thin. But lots of people are asking, where do you take your proteins? Obviously, for me, it may not be the best example when they look at me, but I say there's plenty of plant-based athlete I tend to give example of Serena Williams. I think it's a good example. It's pretty, but there's quite a bit of, football player and other weight training individual, even that I saw in your podcast. And it's amazing to see, how successful a lot of these individuals, like mentioning, how much this has contributed to their success. So it's nice to see.
Yeah, it's so hopeful, isn't it? It makes me even more optimistic, right? If I'm just a naturally optimistic person, and now I feel like I'm optimally optimistic, as more and more people come and join us at Yogi Triathlete, one of our triathlon coaches, BJ is one of them, but our other triathlon coach created this entire brand called the Vegan Powered Athlete, on account of losing his mom to a massive heart attack one day, you know, and just waking up to this whole myth about, you know, what we've been sold and fed and packaged food that's not even food. And it's just this amazing community. And a lot of people are coming now to plant-based. They're coming to endurance sports, and they're coming from a place of obesity. A lot, not all, but like there is a large population of people who are really looking for life transformation. Something that we come up with, I just had like probably 3 conversations in the last week talking to athletes and asking them what they're eating in a day, who are really trying to drop weight. We're talking 50, 75, maybe 100 pounds. And from my perspective, they're not taking in enough calories. Mm-hmm. And they're frustrated because they're like, I'm eating vegan, but the weight's not coming off. I'm exercising. What's the deal? And we know stress, we know sleep, we know mindset, we know all of these things are, like you said, it's a whole piece. But somebody who has worked with obesity management in the past, do you have any wisdom to share on that for people who are looking to drop weight, maybe large amounts of weight, and the importance of making sure that you're still fueling your workouts, and that you're fueling your recovery and just your everyday body for life?
Yeah, I think it's oh my gosh, it's such a phenomenon that I've seen. Obviously, first of all, obesity. When I was working in obesity, when I was in Quebec 40 years ago, 10%. And we thought this was high. Level of obesity that some area in the United States, it's around 30%. So we're not calculating overweight here. We're saying obesity, 30%. So that's not unusual for you to see a lot of people coming with obesity and overweight and saying, I want to get better. But oftentimes I feel that if they're really doing the right thing, if it's really a whole plant base and starting to do exercise, I think it's a little bit like, I may not use the best example, but the infertile couple that has no reason. A lot of the time there'll be situation where when they let go, they get pregnant. That happens. So it is a little bit like that. Is eventually you have to let them say, okay, you're doing all the right thing. Just let it happen. Now, I want to make sure that I don't forget about what you said. The majority of women, especially women, do not eat enough calories. It's just like it's, or especially when I was helping people, they were not plant-based, and they would eat, a bowl of cereal at night, or, something like a protein bar somewhere. I'm not saying the protein bar is bad, but if it's the only thing you eat, and it's amazing, despite of the fact that they are decreasing substantially the amount of calorie, they're not losing weight. So what's burning calorie in our body? The muscle. So women do not realize that we have a higher body fat than the man. Even women that are pretty thin like me carries easily a 19% body fat. I'm not talking about athlete that can go much lower, but women in general always have a higher body fat. And some women that may appear to be pretty thin carries a lot more body fat. And therefore it is hard for them because you cannot burn enough calorie if you don't have muscle. So you have to be able to encourage them to build a little bit muscle and play with the exercise. It is not just only the aerobic exercise. So they have to change a little bit, like you were saying earlier, BJ. You got some days where you do the same thing, and then oops, you change. So you need to do that. The same with people that are trying to lose weight. You got to play the game. Your system is intelligent. It wants to bring you back to where you've always been. So that's why people that say, oh, I've lost 20 pounds, I went back right up. Your body is brilliant. It takes a little bit of time. And you have to be able to, it's one person at a time, but women specifically. If I take women and men and a couple together, the guy was always winning. Obviously, he comes, he doesn't have to do anything, and he was losing weight. And I said, you don't get it. The muscle brings the resting metabolic rate higher. This is how we burn energy, is the resting metabolic rate that is boosted up a little bit more with the exercise. And then that's how you build at the beginning. And then we can change and introduce more aerobics. So you gotta, it's a personalized plan because everybody's different. Some people will do better with the aerobics. Some other, we have to work a little bit more into the other type of training, making sure obviously stress and all that. Does that make sense for you guys?
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I think this is a good segue into talking about women's health. I'm 50. I just turned 50. We've got
You're a young cheek for me.
Oh, we've got women on the team in their 40s, 50s. But I don't just want to speak to them because I know that there's, in your 20s and your 30s, you can be setting yourself up for, better shifts in your hormones and changes going through menopause when you're younger. So just in general, let's see, where should we pop this off? Let's keep with the theme of, strength building. For what can women in their 20s and 30s, be doing now to set themselves up for better, menopause changes when they're in their 50s?
Wow, you got a big question here. We can sit for a long time talking about that.
Settle right in.
Yeah, you want to talk about osteoporosis, hot flashes, and all the symptoms, so that could be a very long path. But, everything starts when you're younger. You build everything there. You build your muscle mass, you build your bones, and if we talk about bones, when you get older, around age 30 is where we reach our maximum and then start going down. And the more we go lower and older, the less bone mass, and it's a little bit more women that are touched. And unfortunately, when we pass menopause, the hormones impact even more and we go even lower. So the most important thing is when you're young, you got to be able to maintain this bone mass. And it is a perfect segue to say, to keep your bone mass, you got to do some weight training. That is the best way for you. With a better bone and muscle mass, you're making your bone mass a lot stronger when you're younger. Now, and it prevent by having that, usually most of the time you're going to keep your bone. If you look at people, I've seen my patient getting older with me, but I see the body changes and I'm like, I can tell because I've seen sufficiently. This is somebody who already started her life being pretty solid. She's got some good muscle mass, and I know that I probably wouldn't even have to do a bone density on her. I know she's going to maintain this. And I can see somebody like me and I say, you're going to have to work a little bit harder on you because you're a lean person and, your muscle is probably more the endomorph type of person. And you have to be careful to be able to maintain this muscle mass so that it helps to prevent the osteoporosis. Now, we're not talking about diet here, but, vitamin D and the calcium in the diet, and the vitamin D is probably better with the sun, which unfortunately we're now saying to everybody, put cream, 100% cream, but if you don't have a little bit of exposure, then we don't have this amazing absorption, so we have to be careful. It is well known now that the plant-based diet can substantially help women going through menopause, decreasing substantially the hot flashes. So if you look at other population of women that were on the plant-based, they didn't have the menopause and the hot flashes and all the symptoms that we're having if you look at Asian. Now it's changing because now they're adopting a little bit more of our American diet. But if you look in the past studies, they were not as affected as we are here. So Neil Barner had done the recent studies actually on the impact of a whole plant-based diet and adding a half a cup of soybeans every day. for 12 weeks and evaluate how women would do. And there was 80% of reduction of hot flashes. So it's a good sign. I should send you the article. So there's not a lot of research yet on this topic, but we're seeing more and more, and that's where things are, changing. So a perfect example of the impact of a plant-based diet. And like you said, your menopause, your women that are changing, hitting the menopause is such a terrible time in perimenopause to change in the cycle and things that they don't like to discuss. It's something that really they don't like to have to, they'll discuss it with a group of women, but they don't necessarily share it with even their physician. Primary care physician are not necessarily comfortable all the time to discuss all the symptoms that are related to it. And we had terrible also research done 20 years ago on hormone that makes it even harder for women. So not that I want to get into this specific topic, but so much misinformation just makes it a little bit more difficult. Hey, the women that sees you, at least they're very active. So that's very helpful for symptoms during menopause, like hot flashes and the most important one being hot flashes. But being able to maintain a more regular weight will definitely also help them to go through menopause without having those significant change in their period and heaviness and everything that is something that is very annoying and uncomfortable. May not be as interested for men to listen to that, but they probably hear about it. It's just terrible.
Yeah. And, our coaches, we've got a female coach and we've got 2 male coaches, and these guys are coaching women who are approaching menopause and menopause, past menopause. And these women are competitive and they want to excel in their sport. And so, what are some of your favorite, weight bearing exercises go ahead. Do you have a question?
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you said that. Does it necessarily have to be weight bearing, or can it just be body weight? Because I envision somebody listening to this and saying, I need to get my gym membership. I need to start lifting heavy weight. Can it be like push-ups and things that you can do at home? I think that's
absolutely. You're right. Resistance band and walking with a small backpack. You're going for your walk 2-3 miles and having something on it doesn't have to be extremely heavy, but you're just carrying a little bit of weight. Some people do it on their hand, not excessively heavy, but they're practicing the movement of biceps. And like I said, a backpack, things like that could be done. But then obviously eventually the resistance band doesn't have to be heavy weight. And eventually I think also people kind of, even something like the yoga is actually excellent, not only for helping to maintain the mass. You're not building big muscle anyway. Women are always afraid they're not going to build a huge muscle. But it's a good exercise to maintain. And also for women that are getting older is to be able to maintain this stability and the stretching that we're losing with time. It's unfortunate, but we're starting to have, much harder, we have more difficulty with the stretching and so yoga for me is terrible. I am far from being a yoga person. I've never been able, even when I was young, it was such a fun thing. But I do it because now I say, I'm sorry, but it's, I cannot just imagine I'm going to go to the gym and pump iron. This is not how it's going to work. So I do more Pilates and yoga in order to help me with the rest of the exercise that I do.
I think it doesn't have to be one way or the other. It can be a fluid process, be flexible in how you train, and that can shift over the years. You were running before, now you're cycling and doing more yoga and Pilates. It's just the important thing is to move the body, and I feel like what we bump up against is the behavior change that needs to happen, or the mindset change. So how do you work with, or how have you been able to shift people's mindset let's talk about the weights in your hands. How can light weights in my hands give me an amazing workout? The resistance to, it's got to be more than that. I have to feel more than that. But it's a behavior.
Yeah, it's interesting. You're talking about behavior. So this is what brought me to coach physician. So in the process of helping my patient to change, I had created a program that's called Better You, which I started with, my obstetric nurses. I went one day and I said, what would you do if I was just offering a program to try to help you get healthy? Every single nurse lift their hand. So I said, it looks like I have a good population here. So I start, that was many years ago. I start when Fitbit was not even in the market. I was ordering the Fitbit, so tell you how long it's been. So we measured them at the beginning, the Fitbit, just to bring you to, when they were with me, their result was amazing. As soon as Dr. Fontaine was out of the picture, they would go back to where they were. So I kind of had this frustration of saying, okay, so how do I do this? It doesn't work. They're not going to be with me all the time. So the behavior is the important section into this. So I went and started doing health coaching. I did what they call the Well Coach with the group in Boston, Massachusetts area. And I'll tell you at the beginning, I was like, really? And then eventually you capture and you understand. So like anything else, I said, I have a surgeon spirit. So you got to get going, do something. And that's what's and then eventually I'm like, wow, that is something. This is an amazing point where you really have to take time. Is all this about this self-awareness and listening to the person to understand where are they coming from? They're the one that will make the change, not me. So in these situations, I have to let them talk more and being able to use what they're telling me to try to help them to make the change themselves. So it's easy for me to say, hey, you have high cholesterol, you got to do something about it. It's not going to work. They're going to do it for 1 or 2 weeks. Even people that we give medication take it for a certain time, and then people are not consistent. So you really have, and it's a lot of investment in time, but you have a much better result if you're able to make them decide. What makes you decide that you wanted to do triathlete coaching, and want to do that for your life? It's the same thing for them. And it's not easy because the environment that we live in is all not in favor. The food industry, the lobbying, is very difficult. So the little influence that I have in my office is limited to the time that I'm with the individual, which will bring me to tell you that the best place to have a huge influence is at the community level. So that's where we start. And you might have seen that in my biography, the community-based intervention that we did in Vermont, which is Rise Vermont, started in our small community where I am, where we choose childhood obesity and said we need to change and do primary prevention, not waiting until people have chronic disease, which is okay. We can help and reverse, but result is difficult in reversing. We have a much better chance to prevent by starting with young people. So this was so popular that we presented at the state level for our ACO that we call One Care Vermont, and they choose it as the primary prevention model, Rise Vermont. So I was part of the founder of these. So it's different than being a high-level athlete, but of these young kids that hopefully will, we would save from obesity. Who knows? Some of them will, change the planet. So that was the idea of doing, and the behavior change is the biggest component. So,
yeah, I was going to ask, what is it about the childhood obesity? Like, what is it? What is the most common thread of changing the habits in the food that they eat to the point where they're maybe more active and being a participant and on that trend to being someone who can change the world? What is it about it?
Well, it is that the prevention is much easier than reversing. As I mentioned to you, once people have to lose 100 pounds, once people have to, stop 2 medication, it's much easier to not having to take any medication. Can you imagine? It's hard to imagine, but the saving that we can do for our health if we don't even have to take medication as opposed to have to reverse. Now, the childhood obesity was the prevention, but the fact was that we were community-based. So we work at the school level, we work with the business, we work with the town. You work everywhere to have an impact. That's the blue zone model, but a little bit more local, because we couldn't afford something like blue zone. We found another model that was very successful in Europe that we call EPOD. It's a French acronym that says, together, let's prevent childhood obesity. So in French, we say, ensemble, prévenons l'obésité des enfants. It's the same thing in English, but it was prevention. They had substantial result that was demonstrated at the moment they decide to go community-based level. And the results are just amazing. So we had the chance to work with them. They came here. They're still doing some good result in Europe, and we still have the possibility of doing this here, but it's a little bit different than being a high level athlete. You're eating plant-based. I'm just telling you some of the, crazy stuff that I've had the chance to do in my career.
The power of community is so important. We saw it yesterday. BJ and I went out for a run with the vegan powered athlete and another team member, and we ran 22 miles on the trails. And on the second half, you could tell that every one of us was fatigued. We had something going on in our body that we were working through, but the four of us together did it together, right? And maybe if we were all individually alone, it would have been much harder. Maybe we wouldn't have gotten the full 22 miles in. So we see it all the time, the power of community together and what is possible. And, the deeper groove that we made yesterday in the direction that we all desire was impacted by the four of us being together. So do you do group coaching now? Or are you working towards that?
So I have done group coaching already. Don't forget, I'm old, so I've already done a lot of stuff.
But we want more. We want more.
So when I was in my hospital, I had introduced what they call the CHIP program, which is a Complete Improvement Health Program, which is very well known in the program accepted by the American College of Lifestyle Medicine to reverse and treat and prevent chronic disease. It's actually a group. It's based on group visits. So I've introduced this program in my hospital, and I probably taught this 15 times. And my Better You was a group visit program. This one was free because I was offering them to my hospital as just wanted to help people to remain healthy. So I had the Better You 5 times until they start bringing a little bit more in lifestyle medicine. But the group visit is probably is there anything better than having and listening to the people that share what's happening? They do more work than I do when I teach a class. We talked about this topic, we give a little bit of information, and then we let them share there. And that sharing, like you said, this community level of discussion makes it that it brings it to another level. And people have this interest of wanting to do more, of sharing their recipe, what they've done for exercise. So it's the interest is definitely there. And we will do, some of these, group visit once we're gonna, get going, at, plant-based. There's a discussion of, I guess I can't really discuss that now, but there's some sort of a potential that we will do group visit, which, I would love. And I'll tell you that the COVID was probably negative for losing a lot of individual, unfortunately, but we have the chance to suddenly do so much more. These group visit, I can see people in New Zealand as a physician. It's amazing. What it allows us, and having the chance to talk to you, I probably would have not even know you if it was not of this. So it's fantastic. And hopefully hopefully it's just going to keep going, because I tell you that the health system is sometimes very slow when it comes to those things, because I had mentioned to my own hospital here the importance of doing telehealth, and they were just waiting. And when COVID hit, everybody was doing telehealth. So it's, we gotta, just adjust with the timing.
How do you, I love the way that you describe the challenges. Have you always been optimistic? And, I know you've got this challenging thing with healthcare, but you always pull on the positives of it. So is this how you've always been?
Yeah, my nickname is Grit. People know me. I'm sorry, that's not very nice. There's only one person that named me like that. Just you just keep going. And I don't know. I suppose some people are made to, go ahead. I guess I'm a trailblazer. I'm interested to bring it to. There's probably a place that know a lot better in plant-based than where I was in Vermont, but it was fascinating. And when COVID hit and I stopped practicing, to be able to discover the plant-based telehealth, it was another element where I say, you know what? I'm happy to coach physicians because they need it. But I wanted to continue doing, to be a physician, and being a physician with athletes, it's even more passion. It's a passion for me because of my background in exercise. I can only say that this is, just an amazing field to see people that have the desire of being healthy and being able to be there with them and say yes. When you talk about optimal health, we're not only trying to reverse disease and treat disease. We want to see people that want to stay healthy. So people tend to say, well, I don't need to see a doctor, I'm healthy, or the physician don't want to see you. That's the opposite of what we want to do. We want to do optimal health. So we want to make sure that we maintain your health so that you have good result in your athlete's life. That's probably one of the most important message here.
Well, I know we have a lot of female athletes that listen to this podcast, right? So female athletes, maybe 40s, 50s, like you guys, this is your doctor. You gotta, if you are wondering how you can move into, these shifts in your body and in your life and maintain your competitive level of athleticism, definitely check out Dr. Fontaine with Plant-Based Telehealth. It definitely excites me for what you have to offer, not just this community, of course, but the world. And, we talked to Dr. Clapper, who is going into colleges and medical schools and talking to the students. And now we've got you, who is actually doing it from the physician end of things. And so what excites you right now? I mean, you've been in this field for so long, but what is it that you're kind of chomping on right now that excites you for the future?
Well, that's the reason when you were talking about behavior, I think the coaching and behavior was to come up to the level of resistance that I had with the leadership team in healthcare, physician, and to be able to be at this level and help them with the coaching, which is a different model, definitely. Physician needs help not only because they're burned out, but to make them understand what we were trying to accomplish. So there was a lot of resistance from primary care physician when I was attempting to bring lifestyle. And so we need to talk, and you're not going to be able to be successful unless the leadership team is in. So that's an interest that I definitely have. On the other side of coaching or being physician, I think with plant-based, it's amazing to see this did not exist. We didn't offer this to the population about 2 years ago, and now we're offering plant-based lifestyle medicine, telehealth. People can have access to amazing physician. We have 12 now. And it's going to grow, and we're going to have those group visit. And who knows, eventually we may have a group of athletes that will be, part of, having the chance. And, that would be, that would be amazing. So that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, if you guys ever decide to do a research study with athletes, where the Yogi Triathlete community is in, I'm sure we could round up a whole bunch of them for you.
Oh, that's a great idea.
And I'm glad it just kind of hit me before you were speaking. I was talking about, women athletes, like this is your doctor, but also we've got several physicians on our team, and we've got physicians in this community, and like physicians seeking other, physicians like you to guide them to those higher levels, because I don't know, I think you're this way too. Like, you got to walk the talk. You got to walk your talk.
Absolutely.
And, I'm a mindset coach, and I work with a mindset coach. I've worked with a meditation teacher for, BJ as well, like for the last decade. And my gosh, it's, when you're the go-to, it's like, it's so nice to have a go-to. Who's your go-to? Who do you bounce things off of?
I have a coach that I have the chance to work with. So it's, and obviously I'm still in training. So I have the chance to have peer coaching in the level, because I do healthcare institution coaching. So I do a lot of, I'm a learner, a constant learner. Even, my age people would say, why don't you just take it easy and retire? And I said, it's kind of boring for me. I want to do more. So the coach and, having the chance to, do the peer coaching with my people, regarding physicians. So I coach physician. I have, a number of physicians that I'm working with, which is, it's really fun. I really like it. So it's an evolution of, it's all coaching when you think about it. When I start as a younger, I coach these twins. And then don't tell me we didn't even say that. Why didn't you go as a sports physician? And the reason was that the athlete didn't listen to me. They don't want to stop when they have an injury. I said, I'm not going to do that. This isn't going to work. So I decided to go in OBGYN, because you can coach women in labor if they listen well, because they don't know what to do. This is talking about a place where, you can't prepare. It's not like a marathon. You're going to do a lot of preparation. We're in labor. Nobody knows how to push. You have to train them and tell them. So there was some coaching there, then coaching the patient, now coaching the physician. So my noble purpose, we're going to finish probably with that. My noble purpose is coaching a village to health.
Beautiful. I love it. How can people get more of Dr. Fontaine? Where can they just absorb more of you?
Well, there's the plant-based telehealth.com for physician, and obviously depend of the state. And I'm not, I don't have my license in every single state, but they can see that online. And I also coach, not only physicians. So if they look at my website on letsleadllc.com, then they can reach out to me as well. And I think my phone number is there, so it's easy to reach out to me, and hopefully we'll stay in contact, you two.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Oh my gosh,
yes.
I'm feeling.
I want to meet everyone.
I'm feeling a future research study happening here, which seems pretty exciting. Yeah, anything is possible, especially with somebody like you at the helm. Thank you so much. Really, really enjoyed talking with you today and getting to know you. And I'm sure this won't be the last time we speak.
Yeah, I hope so. I really appreciate it. It was fun to talk to you guys. Felt like it's just a nice conversation at home.
Good. I hope our listeners enjoyed it too. I think they'll take away many nuggets of gold.
I hope so.